It is time. It's time to stop hiding. It's time to stand up. It's time for Christians to come together, to share their testimonies, to inspire hope, and to join their brothers and sisters as we answer the call. Folks, it's time to wake up the lions. And I have an absolute lion with me today, a friend of mine that I have had the absolute pleasure and been blessed to have on multiple podcasts. And all the while, I'm trying to get him on this one. And boy, let me tell you, this guy is in demand. And so getting him on this podcast was, nothing short of, I don't know, a blessing. So we got him here today. Love it. He is an author. He's a podcaster. He's a creative coach. He's a husband, a father, and creative, and he's forgiven. He's my guy. Please welcome to the show the host of the God and Gigs Show hit podcast. Please welcome Alan C. Paul. Brother, how are you today?
Man, I could not be better if I tried. Thank you so much for having me on the show, bro.
I love that you're on the show with me. Thank you, man. This is when you and I first met. This was one of my newer, ventures that I was trying out. You came on a couple of my other shows. To be honest with you, whenever I start a new show, you're one of the first guys I think of. I'm just like, I got to get this guy
Wow.
on my show. So,
What an honor, man. Again, like you are the serial podcaster, brother. Like you never saw a podcast topic you didn't like, that you could
true.
and master. And that's one of the keys. It's not just, grabbing a whole bunch of shows, but it's like actually knowing that what you're talking about and having a voice. So
Thank you.
I'm honored, man. Anytime that you think of me, brother, I'm like I said, if I could throw it in, figure out a way to get in the schedule, I'm down.
I love it. Absolutely love it. You're in addition to all of those things I mentioned, you've moved into production of all this stuff too. So, give everybody an idea. Who is Alan C. Paul? What are you about? What do you have going on? And of course, we want to know how God has been an influence in your life, man. You can start your story wherever you would like. I know you know how to do this.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, number one, like you said, you already said it from the beginning, there's so much to tell, but really not even the important stuff is all the things and, lists and schedules and bios. All that matters is those first four words you said, husband, father, creator, forgiven, which again, husband of one wife for 28 years now, coming up on 29 as I'm recording. Leah has put up with me. I don't know why, but God gave us each other. And then three kids, which again, it's a blessing because, I started this, man, I'll give away my age right now. I'm hitting on top of 51 and, started being a father long before I was supposed to. And God, again, gave me grace to learn and to be a father even when I shouldn't have been. I didn't know what a father was or what it should be. But thank God I had my dad and I could use that as an example. So yeah, man, three kids later, they're all grown and creative, brother. You said it. God and gigs is my, the thing that God has really given me as a connection between faith, creativity, and entrepreneurship. I'm a church musician, been a church musician pretty much all my life, but I also perform outside. So that's the gigs part. And I help other creators to figure out how to navigate between their spiritual life and their creative life. So I've written a book about that, write some devotionals now in version. And then, man, forgiven, bro, you're right now talking about waking up the lions. And I think so many creative, not just creative Christians, so many people like me who have had a voice of a certain kind, like music. I've been playing in church, right? And I've done it, but speaking your mind and just making stuff are two different things. It's easy to kind of hide behind, oh well, hey, I'll do this or I'll sing in church, I'll do whatever. But actually speaking your mind and having a voice in culture, that's a whole nother situation, right? So the forgiven part, of course, speaks to that Christ is my rock, Christ is my foundation. And the only reason I can say those other three things in confidence and having not messed them all up is because God has forgiven me from those other things. And I want somebody else to know that He's the one that allows you to navigate through life. And so, bro, like that's really the story in a nutshell. But I think I'd love to hear and know like how I can be of assistance to your community that you're building here to kind of continue to inspire them.
No, I appreciate that, man. I really do. That's a big thing here in this community is what you just said. There's a big difference between, making content, being creative, producing, that type of thing, but in speaking your mind and in speaking your heart, and being willing to go out there and say, hey, I'm a believer. God matters. Jesus is in my life. I have a relationship. that type of thing. So often we shy away from that because, while all these other religions are out there literally going out and staking their claim in the world, and fighting for every inch of ground, we are being apologetic and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, let me move out of the way, let me back up even further." And we're getting beaten bad. We're losing rights. We're losing the opportunity to practice our religion in a lot of areas. And I think it's more important now than ever to simply speak up and say, I am, he is, this matters. And so I
Yeah.
appreciate the fact that you're willing to do that and that you do that so often. I mean, with your show, with what you do, in this space. And so, your message and where that comes from is huge. And I know it's going to have an impact on the people that listen today. So just you being here is enough, really and
Hey,
truly.
like, again, if showing up is half the battle, right? Or
Right,
everything starts with that.
right,
And yeah, man, I've been blessed to be in a lot of situations that God placed me where I watched other people do the same thing, right? Where they stood up and they stood out. My current church, where and I'm like you mentioned a little earlier, producing two or three other shows now, where I'm basically taking somebody else's vision, but their vision is somebody needs to hear this. Somebody needs to know that, hey, our family can be in ministry and not be hypocrites, right?
right.
When we're off the mic or off the stage or off the platform. So I'm helping them tell their story because they want to stand out. And then the other podcast I'm working with, where a young lady like builds up, does a little devotional and starts doing these 5-minute devotionals, and then ends up with 3 million downloads after a little while, and then says, "Hey, Alan, help me continue this."
Yeah,
Right. And so these other podcasts are not even mine, are examples of people who just, hey, this needs to exist and people need to hear a message of faith. And if they can do it, right? If they can do it, and other people, and that I've been inspired by around me are willing to stand up and say, "Hey, put my like you just mentioned, this, put my stake in the ground. Maybe you believe this, but we believe this." As for me and my house, right? The whole Joshua thing.
hmm
So it has never been easier to do that because of our culture and because of our technology.
hmm
And in a sense, it's never been easier to do like the 911 thing where we always assume somebody else is going to call.
Ah,
Right. So that's the balance, is where there's so many voices. You might think, well, why do I need to do anything? There's everybody's saying what I need. And it's like you just said it. No, like not everybody's saying the message of Jesus, the message of Christ, the message of forgiveness, salvation, and of righteousness. There's not that many voices that are actually saying what you think everybody's saying. Just
yeah,
because it's loud doesn't mean it's prevalent.
right.
So I think it's so important that like people again kind of get out of their assumption that somebody else will speak up, somebody else will do it. They won't do it the way you do it. They may say something, God has witnesses everywhere. It's true, but they're not going to say what you would say, and
Right.
they won't have your testimony. So hopefully that's encouragement right off the bat that, it's not just one person's battle. It's everyone working together and using their unique voice.
I love that example of the 911. We had an instance once with the power going out in our small little section of this neighborhood, and we were all literally out in the street, at dusk, going, "Man, the power's been out for a while," blah blah blah. And through the course of the conversation, we realized none of us had called to report the outage because we all thought somebody else called to report the outage. It's exactly the
Yeah.
same type of thing. And so we're like, I think maybe I'll go call and report the outage. Maybe that'll help us get out of the outage. That's exactly, I think, what's happening in so many ways. You have an incredible amount of talent that God's given you, and musician and the music that you make and the way you communicate and everything else. What was it that first sparked you to say, I'm going to use this talent. I'm going to create this product, this thing, right? This music, um, and use it for God's work.
I love this question, word, because you always bring me back to things I don't get a chance to share a lot or haven't, again, really thought about. Oh, this is part of my story too. This needs to be part of what I share, right? So I can't talk about that impetus without talking about my parents, about my mom, about being, a snotty-nosed teenager in Lutheran church up in Pensacola, Florida. Yes, I'm Lutheran from, I know no one would have guessed that, right? But I was brought up Lutheran. That was the first church that we really became like really solid in, that I remember growing up and, going through my catechism and all that kind of stuff, as close to Catholic as you can get, right? It's almost, confirmation is all very similar. And that was when I was playing in my youth church because that's what you did when your mom was the music director. You learned the piano and you played for the youth choir. And that was the first time that I started. We did these little tours of these other little churches, and we'd sing these little musicals or whatever. And of course, I'm the got to direct, and we got to do our little claps and everything, and get the choreography. We didn't know what we were doing. We were like 10 of us, right? But we thought we were special. I think it was the Voices or some special name we had. But it was our thing, right? And as you're a teenage and you're a young, believer, and you believe so much in what you're doing, we wanted it to be special. And I think maybe it was one conference that we went to in New Orleans. Huge, 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 huge conference. All these kids showing up for, I think, Lutheran Church Missouri Synod youth conference, and I think we had one of those spots. Like, I don't remember the size of the space, but it was like thousands of kids. It's the biggest audience we've ever been in front of. And we get up there, we do our songs. I think it was probably more gospel than they'd ever heard before, right? Whatever we were trying to do. We hear the roar of the crowd, and I'm playing, and I remember at the end, I probably overreacted a little bit. I might have done a little bit of a histrionics. I might have been a little, yeah, you know. And I just remember that feeling of this is bigger than I even imagined, right? Just playing piano for church was opening a door to something that I did not imagine was out that was available to us or available to me or available to my little choir. Of course, that expanded throughout the years where now, oh, you're playing for symphony here or you're playing for this other artist or whatever. But I think that was the first time I realized that what I have is supposed to grow. What I have is not supposed to stay in this little church in Pensacola, Florida. And again, that's not egotistical. It's humbling to realize I can't sit on this, right? There's so many other performances that I did, but I can say that in terms of perform ministry. In terms of ministry, that's where it really hit. It's like, oh, this is supposed to happen, and I'm going to have to grow into this. I'm going to have to grow into how do I now run a ministry? How do I now take these people and inspire them to no, 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 no. We can't just do this in this church. We have to go do concerts. We have to go create music. We have to create a music. We have to invite people in that don't normally come to church. We have to, you know what I mean? So all of that stems from a realization that the mission is bigger than you right now, but you have to grow into the mission. You have to grow into who you're going to be. And the only way you can do that is by stepping out in faith and say, oh, wow, I have no idea how to do this. I'm going to try it. They asked me to serve, they asked me to minister, they asked me to do this, they asked me to take on this big project. So that's kind of where it started, man. It was realizing that, music first, that was kind of the thing. Worship was the doorway to performing and ministry and growing my art and growing my craft to impact more people. But it didn't stay there. But it wouldn't have started without my mother and my father being grounded in that church and saying, Alan, take the lead in this, even though you have no idea what you're doing, and you should not be a choir director when you're like barely 14 to 15 years old.
It should not. Right. I mean, you go where you're called, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's like don't despise your youth, right? So that was the youth part where it all starts from there, and then God continues to equip you and grow you as you move through what He asks you to do.
Sure. Now, just from, I mean, I follow you on social media, of course, and, keep up with all the hundreds of things that you're doing on a regular basis because you are a busy, busy fella. This is still today it seems like a very big part of who you are and of you spreading your message and God's message. Yes?
100%. Yeah, that those three tenets, I guess, when I say faith, creativity, entrepreneurship, and that's just the easiest way to say kind of whatever I do ends up revolving around. It does not shift, and that's a blessing, by the way. I've been just to kind of quickly pivot to just something that's been stuck in my heart in terms of reading and scripture. I've been stuck between Revelation and Exodus, and I don't know why these are my two bookend books that I'm studying right now, but I think it's because both are places where God was unapologetically revealing Himself.
Hmm.
Revelation was, hey, I'm coming and I'm coming with my rod of iron. No more playing around. The saints are here. This is what's about to happen. I'm God. You should have noticed this a long time ago, right? Exodus is also God's on the mountain. Moses is like, hey, this is what he said. Do not play around. Then a couple of times he's like, I'll show up myself because they don't believe you. I'll show up for myself in the mountain. And they like, okay, this is real. So the reason I bring up those two things is because one thing that scripture that I caught was when Moses comes down with the tablets and everything in the tabernacle, and he says, see that you do not deviate from this pattern.
Hmm.
And that like struck me. It was like, guys, like, do not play around with like the little, you know what I mean? Don't tweak this. Don't, oh, maybe we just try this a little bit. It's like, no, here's how to do it. Do it this way, and you'll be fine. Deviate from that, all bets are off. And we know what happened when they started to deviate from that pattern that he set up on the mountain. And so the reason I say that is because we've been given a pattern, man. Like we have been given as kingdom assigned ministers, Christians, whatever. We've been given a pattern. The pattern is how Jesus set his followers. The pattern is how God set up his order, how he set up his kingdom. And every time I have a chance to set down, and this is the pattern. So God gave me a pattern, right? Music. Use your music to bless people and to bless the kingdom and to bless other people and to draw them in with your talent. Build things. Okay, that's the pattern. I'll build a podcast. I'll help this other person build a podcast. I'll build a brand over here. Build something. Boom, 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 boom. That's the pattern. I'm not deviating from that. At this point, it may be a different kind of project. It may be a different idea, but God has given me the pattern. So anything you see me doing is going to fit in the pattern that He's already presented. Again, it doesn't mean that I won't try new things or they couldn't shift things around, but He's shown me the pattern pretty clearly that it's going to involve your faith, it's going to involve something of your creative life, and it's going to involve something when it comes down to building something in a new way where people can sort of see things in a new way. If it fits those three things, I'm probably am going to be involved.
That's amazing. I mean, I love that. First of all, you just have a way of putting things into words that I just, really, really love. It communicates so well. But then again, that's you. Again, that's part of
Thank
your
you, man.
pattern, like you just said. The clearly you do. I can absolutely see where you're coming from. Um, a lot of people, I think, wish that they could recognize that they could sort of see their pattern, their purpose, the path they're supposed to be on, that type of thing. Um, when did you first
Yeah.
like notice that, hey, I'm in this pattern that I got to pick it up? Was there something that clicked? Was there like an event or something that sort of went, hey, shine a light on this, this is what you've been doing. Can you see it now? Type of thing. Or was it just gradually over time and with all this wisdom of being, on the other side of 51 that you finally came up with?
I wish I had the easy answer to that, and I
Yeah.
can't tell you which one it is. Like I feel like I could tell you with God and gigs,
Mhm.
it was like a little bit of a revelation, kind of like light bulb moment. It
Okay.
was I have a problem, which is I'm out here performing and playing secular gigs, and I'm afraid that God's going to judge me for it, right? So I have a problem. And I need to talk to other people who already do this. So God and Gigs was essentially me saying, I have an issue. I need a pattern, right? I need to know how do you do this? How do you not sacrifice your faith while you're out in the secular world? And God kind of gave me people that started to show me, oh, well, these are the elements that you need to have, right? Now, the actual book that I wrote down with the seven service steps, that was like a moment. That was a light bulb. That was God really saying, oh, these are the seven steps. Stay connected to God, establish your priorities, respect the business, visualize your goals, evangelize through your gift. Like all those things that I wrote down in the book was almost like a snap. And I just wrote them down in my notepad. So I think it's a combination of the two, right? Like you live life, you look for, you pray and you look for wisdom, but a lot of this God allows to be progressive revelation. Like He's not going to give it to you all at one time. Oh, here's your pattern. Here's what you're born for, right? Your purpose, boom. I think purpose is gained through life, through living, through experience, through seeking. Seek the Lord while He may be found. We have to seek, ask, seek, and knock. So I don't think we get that light bulb moment as much as we want, the lightning strike.
Yeah.
That being said, I think once you are actually engaged in the effort of seeking and knocking, God does open the door sometimes and just say, boom, here it is. Here are the three things. Here are the four things. Here's what you're all about. Here's your purpose. The book I'm looking or thinking about right now is Jordan Rayner, Called to Create. It's one of the first books I found when I was trying to write God and Gigs that I was like, how do I explain how to find your mission, how your purpose, find your purpose? And I remember reading his book and also Master of One. That was the other one. Two books. I love Jordan Rayner. Both of them talk about how people found their calling not through this sitting in a closet. They just tried things. They took small bets, like, I think this might be it. I think this might be it. And then find out this, they hit a dead end. And some people would think that means God like shut the door on them. It's like, no, God is leading you through all the paths and he's giving you the chance to try things out. Maybe you go to college and it's not quite it. Doesn't mean you weren't following your purpose. It's you're going to find your purpose through the activity of seeking God. That's where it comes from. So I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but that's how I see it. I see it as a combination of progressively looking for what God is asking you to do, trying things out, but then being ready for the moment that he's like, that's it, and then moving on it. Not waiting again for this, 10 tablets, 10 commandments on the two tablets, right?
Right.
It's not usually like that. But every once in a while, after you're active, it does show up all at once. And it's like, oh, this is it. So yeah, I would say it's a little combination of both.
Yeah. No, I love that answer. I mean, it's very honest. It's very open. I appreciate it. In my experience and from what I hear talking to a lot of folks, the
Mhm.
I think we've been conditioned as a culture to sort of look for that Rocky Four montage in our lives where, we go from, not ready to go to the training sequence to now we're in the fight and we're the best we've ever been, right? Everybody
Yeah.
thinks you can go out to the barn and crawl through the snow and all of a sudden you're a totally different person. Um, every
Karate
once in a
Kid
while we
thing.
have
Yeah.
that, so I've had a few moments in my life like that where I've been laying on a hospital floor, that make you kind of like wake up and go, hey, what in the world? But, I think it
Yeah.
happens like that more often where over time there are these things that happen and you find these new patterns and then you look back a little and go, this has been working.
Yep.
I see this now. And then you can move forward. Sounds like that's a little bit more like what happened to you.
Yeah. I would say obviously, hindsight is 2020, right? And
Of
so I
course.
do feel like as you look back and you see, oh, this is what God was setting up. But again, I want to make sure that we focus on the responsibility we have to move forward with the information we have. I don't know if this guru thing is, correct. I'm just going to take the stat because I heard it on a webinar, right? So it's got to be right. But
Right.
he said, Jeff Bezos says he goes by the 70% rule. When he has 70% of the information, he makes the decision. And I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb, right? You're not going to have 100% of the information. You're not going to have 100% clarity. But yeah, I like that 70%. Once you have about 70% of the like, yeah, you know what? I'm about three-fourths there. You make the decision. You move forward. You try it out. You give your best in that area, right? Colossians says anything you do as unto the Lord. He doesn't say only do the things that you're absolutely sure of with all your heart as unto the Lord. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
you'll never find out. If you don't give your best in the area you are, even if you feel like, I don't know if this is really it. But if you don't give your best and effort in that area, you shortchange the possibility of finding out that's really it. So yeah, I think people sometimes want, like you said, they want that Rocky Four and they want that this is what I'm training for. And you may train for something that looks like this, and it turns out you were training for something totally different. But that's God's operation, not yours,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
our part is to bring our best to the training, not to be like, oh, I know what the championship fight's going to look like and who my opponent's going to be. It's like, no, like whatever the training looks like, leave that up for the trainer. But our job is to bring our best to that moment in the site. So yeah, I love this analogy, man. It's perfect. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I think all of us have to do versus again, assume that we know the end before we start.
Yeah. Perfect. Absolutely love it. When you and I get together, we always talk about podcasts, of course, right? Because that's, yeah, I mean, our
Hmm.
podcasting is something that we have in common. It's how we met. It's the world that we live in, our community, and so on. I don't feel like I give you enough credit for
Oh,
being, the author that you are either. I mean, your creative is not just in music. It's not just in podcasting. Now it's not just in producing. I mean, writing, is not the easiest thing in the world either. I talk to a lot of authors, man. And I mean, for some, it's a lifelong thing. And you've written multiple books. You want to tell us about those and just briefly kind of, what they were, what they meant?
Thank you for bringing that up because I remember someone say that you're not technically an author until you've written more than one book. If you just written a book, you've written a book. And even though like the other things I've written have been, smaller in terms of like length, like you're right, like the actual effort it takes to go from idea to having a book in your hand or a book in your Kindle, people do underestimate that. Like even right now, as I mentioned, we're working on other projects inside my church where I'm helping actually produce and edit and get people on the road to getting their work out. And it is a bear. It doesn't matter what kind of work it is. To publish is a full-time job.
Right.
Forget just the writing part. Just publishing it and then getting it out is a full-time job. So I would say the first thing I would say in terms of the writing is the God and Gigs book. I don't talk about it a lot anymore in a sense. And it's
Hmm.
strange to say that, but it comes from a different season because it was written to church musicians. As I mentioned, I was coming out of my worship experience as a full-time minister of music. God, for some reason, decided, you know what? Let's call him out of full-time ministry. And I just always feel like that's a strange thing to say. God called me into the ministry. And my first testimony is God called me out, at least of that particular position. And that is when I found myself playing for $50 and some fish dip in a blues club and thinking, what the heck am I supposed to do? And then eventually meeting people like Christian Dentley, who sings for the gospel artists, gospel group Take Six. Trent Phillips is an amazing friend, but he also was the MD for years and years, still is, I think, for Donnie McClurkin and every other gospel artist you can name. It's been on the Super Bowl, and all these guys gave me quotes and information on how to be a Christian musician in the mainstream culture. And so that became God and Gigs. And so that book was, again, as I mentioned earlier, me just writing down here's what's working for me and other people. And even though I don't now only share with church musicians, it's still the core of what I do, right? So I've been for years thinking about writing a new edition of that for all creatives, but sometimes you got to niche down. And sometimes I forget about, oh, you know what? I need to make sure that these people remember that. And the other part is, I don't know if musicians read. I might should have thought about that before I did this. So that is still the core, but that's the core book that made me an author, right? Me sitting down saying, I'm a musician, but I need to help people who are like me, who don't want to feel like they are going to lose their faith or be able to navigate the business of music. So that book, honestly, again, is like the core of all of the tenets that became the God and Gigs platform. But that one specifically is for musicians. Now, my devotional, Your Art, God's Heart, again, came from the struggle of, okay, we're creators, we're musicians, we're artists, we're podcasters, but where's in scripture does it talk about being a podcaster? It doesn't. The scripture talk about specifically so I wanted to draw the line between artist and creative in terms of the biblical part. So your art, God's heart was 21 days for creatives to be able to figure out, hey, here's a biblical lesson that you can apply to your artistic work, that you can apply to your creative lifestyle. So that was the 21 days that I created for that. And then I guess you say the third major writing that I'm doing right now is for the YouVersion stuff, which has been a huge blessing. So it's not a book yet. Stay tuned. That was a little tease there.
Right.
But I have written a series of devotionals on the creative lifestyle, and they all start with the creator, the creator's craft, the creator's purpose, the creator's authority, the creator's timing. And as of this recording, I just released the creator's battle. So five, not books yet, right? But five-day devotionals. So they are starting to develop the core of what will be hopefully the next book, which will talk about the creator's lifestyle using God as the ultimate creator, his template. How should creators
Nice.
who are currently creating in the real world, what can we learn from God, the creator, and how he? So that's all those devotionals are basically the underpinnings of what I think will be the next book.
Nice. So you're building it, but you're not building it. But you are, but you're not.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. And like I just mentioned, activity, right? I can't say the book comes out on this date, but I know if I don't keep writing, the book will never come out.
Right
So
on.
this has been a great segue for me to reach a whole new audience. The U version is amazing. They're going to reach 1 billion installs as a recording in November. So we're talking about, how many people have been exposed to the Word of God, and my work gets to be a part of that. People can get accessible to, stuff that appeals to creators inside an app that they should be reading anyway, no matter what. So however you get to the Bible, whatever app you use, right? Like get to the Word of God, period.
Right.
So here's one way to do that where technology has made it super easy for everybody to just pick up a Bible anywhere on your phone. So that's been a blessing for me to realize again that my writing and my ability to share my lifestyle and the way that I connect the dots between my spiritual life and the creative life are now accessible to anyone all over the world.
That's amazing that you have become involved in that. I think that's fantastic, especially for everything that you have to offer. So that's just great. So God and Gigs was the first book that came out
Right.
and sort of established you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That was the one that I was like, okay, like again, I did the Kickstarter. I didn't know it was going to work, didn't know it was going to sell anything, but you know, Lord, we're going full steam ahead.
hmm Beautiful. I absolutely love it. So now you've put out another book though.
Between Your Art, God's Heart, I haven't done a third one in terms of I've done a study guide to go
Hmm
along with, like you look behind me for your video.
Sure.
I have done a study guide for God and Gigs, which
Okay.
was a separate resource, right? I don't call
Gotcha.
that a resource. I wouldn't really call that a different book. So no, there's only the two books right now, if you'd say that. Oh yeah, and then you're right. There's just like a little mini book I did called Break Through the Block, but I call that more like a resource again.
Okay.
Yeah, so the third book hopefully will be The Creator's Life, which I'll figure out how that'll work. But yeah, that's what's in the works.
That's the tease, right? You even give us the title to it now. Oh, okay. All
I
right.
look, maybe just respond to this email, respond to this podcast and email me, please. Tell me what I should call it because
Love that.
they're
Okay.
working on that.
All right. Well, so now when the new book comes out, you realize you have to come on, at least four of my podcasts as part of your book tour, right? And
Look,
talk about it.
by that time you'll have like 16 more podcasts, and I could just
Could
matter
happen.
of fact, just read a chapter per podcast.
Could happen, actually. So, yeah,
Exactly. That's why I don't count anything against you, man.
I'm telling you, exactly. All right. I love that, man. I appreciate you going into that as well. Um, one of the things we talk about in this program a lot is spiritual warfare. And
Mhm.
you and I have talked about some difficulties and things that you've run into when there's a big difference in life with hey, there's the difficulty of life, because hey, Jesus is not an easy button. So you have things that happen, and then there's actual spiritual warfare. Um, what sort of spiritual warfare have you encountered? What sort of form did it take when you encountered it, and how'd you handle it?
Wow. So this is a very deep question for me because it immediately takes me to some of the darkest moments that I've had to face.
Mm,
Because you can't talk about spiritual warfare and realize that the devil hasn't come to steal, kill, and destroy. And that means he wanted to kill, steal, and destroy me, right? Like that's
right.
the point of spiritual warfare. I was talking in our church office with our pastors and some of the church staff about some of the events that just happened, right, as we're recording this year in 2025 with the tragedy.
Right.
And we were talking about how people give so much credit to demonic. Oh, the demonic this. Oh, this person was possessed. The devil's busy. Like, and we came and we just said, people are so quick to give all the credit to the demons and to the evil spiritual forces, and not realize that they're always from the get-go outnumbered 2-1. Always. It's always been 2/3 stayed, 1/3 was kicked out. So maybe my math is a little wrong. I don't know how it is, right? There's two, but there's for every devil, there's more than one, right? There's more than one angel that's like, we got this. It was already designed from the get-go that he be outnumbered, that the demonic would be outnumbered, that there's no, right, greater is he that's in us and he that's in the world, because there's more for us than there are against us, period. So just in terms of spiritual warfare for me has been realizing that even those darkest moments where I went through depression, went through suicidal thoughts, went through attacks on my family where the same things happened inside my family. And by the way, are still happening in different areas of my family, right? And just the battle for my soul and my marriage. I have to first say, thank God for the people in my life who were soldiers when I was lying bloodied on the battlefield and had basically lost and thought that I wasn't going to get up again. So thank God for those people who were praying for me. But then the second thing would be one of my theme scriptures back from when I was in Pensacola was the Ephesians 6, put on the whole armor of God, right?
Amen.
So the armor that I have been able to pick up, or the weapons that I have been able to pick up over time, have been number one, the absolute realization that surrender is strength. Once I realized I had no ability to fight this on my own, was the only chance that I had to win these battles. The battle for my marriage, the battle for where God had, I felt God had abandoned me. God had not abandoned me, but I thought He had abandoned me. So I was thinking and acting in a way that He had abandoned me, and the devil was using that way to absolutely just shatter my confidence, shatter my ego, shatter my self-esteem, shatter everything that made me feel like that I was a child of God. So I had let that attack in, right? I basically opened the door to that, and He's like, "Okay, gotcha. I'm gonna go ahead." For me to then say, Lord, I don't even feel like I have a shield of faith right now. All I have is what I basically, this mustard seed, but everything else is shattered. But I'm going to pick up what I have. I'm surrendering to you. All I have left is this. Will you use it? Will you accept this prayer? Will you accept this repentance? All I have, surrender. When I'm weak, that's when he became strong. And it's funny that you mentioned the whole progressive thing about when did you realize? I don't realize when I started winning. It's really strange how that happens, man. Like you'll start praying, you'll start saying, "Okay, Lord, I am going to fast. I am going to give you. I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to surrender. I'm going to stop acting like I know what I'm doing. I'm going to give God the chance to be my warrior, to be my strength, to be my shield, to be my tower. Because as long as I'm trying to do it, He won't. He can't. Like He's like, my strength is made perfect in weakness. So as long as you decide I'm not weak, well, my strength is not perfect. So I kept, in a weird way to say it, I hope I'm not theologically totally off. I'm weakening God because His strength is made perfect in weakness. If I am trying to be strong on my own, I'm literally saying, I don't need your strength, Lord.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I would say this in a long-winded answer that my battles back in those days and still now have been always based on surrender, based on how do I then say, okay, Lord, I don't feel like I have the faith, but I'm going to pick up what I have. I don't feel like I'm reading your Bible correctly, but you said it's a sword. So I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to stay here and I'm going to be consistent in what I have, right? Consistently showing up, even when it feels like this is making no difference. I don't feel any different. I still feel depressed. I still feel this. I still don't feel like I'm really serving. I still don't feel loved. And yet your word said, you're going to be a light into my feet and a light into my path. I'm going to pick it up again. So that has been honestly the spiritual warfare of my experience has been battling the feeling that this is not going to work, this is not going to happen, and God's not for me. And then all of a sudden realizing He was there all along.
That was great. That's amazing, brother. I mean, right there. Um, my goodness, we talk about it a lot. I don't
Mm,
get to hear it put that way that often. So thank you for bringing that way.
my
That was really
pleasure, man.
something. I'm not usually speechless, but that hit me. I was like, wow, that was a great way to describe that. It's a big deal that we talk about in the podcast because it's so prevalent.
Yes.
You can't go on Facebook and go through two or three posts before you see something about demons or spiritual warfare or the devil's attacking you or evil or something else. And you're right. We give so much credit and so much strength to that. Now, there's benefits to that because as long as people realize that it's actually out
Yeah.
there, well,
Yeah.
then maybe it keeps you in your faith a little more, right? you know, but by the same token, when you focus on that, and that's all you think about, well, then you kind of forget about, hey, I need to keep protecting myself from this one third, so I need
Yeah.
to get stronger in the faith. Maybe I should pick up my Bible. So
Hmm.
I really appreciate that standpoint. Um, and that brings me to another question that I've never really got a chance to hit with you, and that is, I was raised Catholic, and you're Lutheran, and so Catholic, being raised Catholic, we really didn't pick up the Bible much.
Mm.
I knew what I knew from church. I knew what I knew. My relationship with Jesus at that time was through the priest, through the church itself, right? Through another vessel to him. There was a middleman, so to speak. The more I have sort of, progressed in my journey, my relationship with him is much more, one to one now. Um, in your upbringing, in your, current situation did you spend a lot of time in the Bible when you were younger, or is that something that you've developed as you've gotten older, um, and more experienced and sort of more blessed in your faith?
No, I love this question, and I would say it's funny that you mentioned the upbringing in terms of again my Lutheran background now in the non-denominational churches I'm currently serving, right? So I've
Hmm.
been non-denominational for years now, but
Wow.
in terms of like my spiritual formation, uh, I am grateful for that Lutheran background because getting into the word, even though if it wasn't necessarily it was more academic at the time, right?
Hmm. Right.
But it emphasized knowing it. It emphasized here is what we believe from the church fathers. Here's what Luther actually wrote. Here's the doctrines, right? We don't say those words doctrine much, right? Unless you're in a university or a theological setting, right? But
Hmm.
there's a reason why God said it the way he said it. There's a reason that these particular things are formatted in a way in almost like a very academic, this is the structure of our faith, right? Like the underpinnings in terms of the Bible. So that's where I really came from it as a young man. Now getting more personal with the way we're speaking life into me and really becoming more like living and active versus just the academic and knowing what you believe and knowing the ins and outs. That would say I'm in my 20s and 30s. Um, Being on staff, becoming in ministry, but then realizing that again, you can't just go out there and just spout a bunch of scriptures and it not mean anything to you.
Right.
So realizing that I had to get in and say, okay, what do I need today? And being almost a little selfish, right? Getting into your Bible and not saying I need something to preach. I need something that will fit this scripture for this song. And always using the word as almost like this like utility belt just to pull out something and, use it for ministry
Right.
versus being this is God speaking to me. So I'll say in my 20s and 30s, that's when it really became like, okay, I need a word that will help me get through and speak to my wife, understand how to raise my children. I need to understand how to battle back against these feelings of inferiority or insecurity. Uh, you know, I've failed. I've messed up. Psalm 51 has become, like many men, a life verse because creating me a clean heart, oh God, because I feel like I'm dirty and I'm sinful and you'll never accept me again. Right. So that's when it becomes real, when it becomes less of a utility belt and more like a life vest.
Nice. Great analogy. Love that one. The utility belt. That's perfect. Um, wow. I love that. I really do. The everything that you do seems like you are, in a way, sort of reaching out, establishing the beginning of discipleship with as many people as possible in terms of reaching out through your music, through your writing, through your podcasting. Is that an active, conscious purpose of doing these things, or is it a byproduct of doing these things? Like, hey, this is what I'm called to do, and hey, it's bringing people to maybe an awareness, or is it much more like I'm doing this because I want to bring an awareness?
That's a great question. I guess the only way I can answer it is by explaining what fuels me in terms of what lights me up
Hmm.
when I'm doing stuff like this, right? So we had this exercise again. Our church staff has been amazing because they're always doing coaching, always training us, always doing a lot of like so, building us up and educational stuff and coaching. So one of the things they've really focused on is who are you sewing up to, who are you sewing into laterally, and who are you sewing down into, right? So I have to be honest and say, sometimes I struggle with I definitely believe in sewing up, honoring my leaders. And I think in slowing down in terms of like seeing people and picking them up and helping them and giving, like you just said, that, this is kind of like just my nature. I just want to help people. I sometimes struggle with the lateral, with who is just running with me, and I am. These are the people that I feel not like you are a perfect example of this. You and I connecting, right? I see us as running the race together. You've got your place where you're running and we're running and we're running together. When we connect on these podcasts, it's like, oh my gosh, thank God someone understands, But I can
Right.
say honestly, before that was not as intentional, right? I didn't make that as intentional as I am now doing it. Now, that being said, to answer your question, I don't think it's a byproduct because I think that's what lights me up inside is realizing these relationships and the community I've built literally is the fabric of what my life is now.
Nice.
So I think the discipleship part is partly of the Paul and Timothy thing where you hope there's people following you, but it's also the Paul and Silas. It's the we're united in this. So the more I look around, again, progressive revelation, right? The more I
Mhm.
look around now, the more I realize, oh, this is what I was doing all along. The discipleship was happening alongside the people that were living life with me and walking this line of faith and realizing that, oh, every time I spoke and tried to encourage them, that was part of the situation, right? I wasn't like going in, oh, let's do a discipleship class. Oh, let's do a, fellowship or whatever. Like it wasn't, it was just living life. But the book and the platform and the community has become that. It has become that, two or three are gathered. You know, I realized that God was in each one of those meetings, each one of those meetups I used to do with the creatives, but down here in South Florida, we'd have these little meetups and these coffees, right? And I wasn't saying to myself, okay, we're going to disciple everybody. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
that wasn't the thought process. But now looking back, that's exactly what it was, because sometimes I think we assume we have to have, like, again, this kind of like program set up. And, you know, God knows that his word will not return void. So he put his word in you or in me to reach a certain person. It will not return void. Now you can try to hide it, but God's like, no, this is going to get to who it needs to get to. So it might as well be you. So I think that's what happened, man. I think over time I've realized that this is exactly what this is. Like, I've struggled for years because I don't like calling God and gifts a ministry, not because I'm not ministering, but because I never wanted to see it as just one facet of that, right? I didn't want it to be where people would like put it in that box because it's more than that. It's ministry, it's a business, it's a platform, it's a community, it's all those things, right? In the midst of doing all that, we minister. In the midst of doing all that, we disciple. In the midst of doing all that, you know what I mean? We encourage. So another one long-winded answer, but I feel like it's the second. It's the second part of realizing what you're doing versus like having some kind of program written down, like, oh, that we're going to find a way to reach people. No, there's an issue. There's people who like me who need help. Let's create something, and then God will use it along the way to accomplish His purposes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And don't ever worry about being long-winded on one of my shows. Okay. Your answers are gold, brother. So absolutely love
I appreciate it.
it. Before I let you go, there is one more thing that you and I were talking about that I know you wanted to touch on. The idea of the hedonic adaptation. Do I have that right? Because I mean,
I
that
don't
was
know, man. This was
fascinating,
this is
man.
this is social media scrolling at its best and like thinking you become smart because you see a big word. Um, but and then I asked AI, even better, right? I asked AI, is this real?
Oh, goodness.
AI,
If you'd have told me that
according
ahead
to
of time,
AI,
oh,
it's
come on.
yeah, no, I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you. I mean, basically, I think what it is we are as men, and I know we talked about this about power of man, right? So we've
Hmm.
shared that. But in general, this society is just so hyper focused on what have you done for me lately? What happened today? Are you, how many followers you have today? What's your income today? You know, everything is so based on like just now, 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 present, present, and nothing's thinking about the future legacy. Honestly, another shameless plug. The next devotional that will probably be a section in the book is the creator's legacy because I see so many people passing away and it's like, what are we leaving behind?
Mm.
What if today's your last day? How do we prepare ourselves for the afterlife, and for what people will have when we're no longer here. So that's another whole nother topic. But the reason I bring that up is because the hedonic adaptation thing that I saw was about how we struggle to celebrate the accomplishments we've made because we immediately go on to the next. Oh, what's the next thing I need to do? I need to do something different. And we fail to do what I think God always says, which is to really think about the gratitude, right? The 10 lepers, the one that turned around and said, thank you. Jesus heals the 10 lepers. Nine of them are like, yay, we're going to go show ourselves to the priest. We're healed. Thank God. Everything's cool now. We're going to go back to our families. And everything becomes like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Only one said, let me turn around and say thank you for what you just did right now. Right. So I think the hedonic adaptation thing, if it is a real thing, which I believe, I guess one of the psychologists said, is a reminder to say, make sure that for what God has done, right? Past, present, and don't spend so much time thinking about going into the future. What am I going to do next? What's my next project? How many followers will I have tomorrow? Da, 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 da. How much money can I make tomorrow? And everything like that. And just think so hyper focused on the next that we forget about what God has already done for us. So I don't know if that's a thing. Maybe I would do a book on it or something like that. But I think it's something for us, again, thinking about us as believers. We know what God will do because of what God has done. And if we have more faith and more confidence in what God has done, maybe we wouldn't be so worried about what he will do.
Right on. I'm really glad I brought that up because that's kind of a great way to sort of leave a parting thought, out there for
Mm.
folks in a lot of ways. But as we bring this to a close, let me make sure you've got a community, you've got all sorts of things going on. Where can people find your community? What's that about? Your products, everything else. Give us your contact info. Do some self promotion here, brother.
All right. Self-promotion. We love it. Just kidding. We're promoting the gospel and we're doing so by sharing what we work on, right? So I feel like the every time I'm on a podcast, man, the easiest thing is to stay right there on the app that you're using right now. So you can go to godandgigs.com/pass if you want to go to a browser. But anything else, simply go to God now. All in terms of creatives, how we connect with creatives, how we help people who are trying to connect the dots between their spiritual life and their creative life. And again, Roy, your podcast was a perfect example. I got to hear some stories about you and your battles and how you created what you created. We went to your books, your weight loss, everything. Like we talked about all of that. So it's a great way to remind people that there isn't, again, one size fits all. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with me. All my socials are always on all those podcasts. You can find me at Alan C. Paul if they're looking for my personal doing on most socials, Instagram, and so on. But yeah, I would say right now, easiest call to action, stay on this app right now. Go check out Roy's podcast on God and Gigs. And that way they can go ahead down the rabbit trail of everything else that we're doing.
I love that. I love that. And it's funny. As soon as we started talking about self promotion, a couple things cut out. So it's like, you know,
Oh no.
no, it's all good because I'm going to make sure everything's in the show notes for everybody. But I just wanted to make sure you had a
Perfect.
chance to give it out there. So yeah, we will get it all in there for sure. And you circled back around to do a second, shot at that one. So it
Perfect.
worked out. It was just so funny. It's like, oh, self promotion, and we both don't want to have to do
It's
that.
like
And all of
exactly
a
like God's
sudden,
like, hmm.
yeah, I don't think so, guys. It was great. All right, brother. Listen, I appreciate you so very much. All the work that you do, and what's behind all the work that you do. I mean, your heart's always in the right place. Congratulations on your family, your kids, being with your wife as long as you have. Those are things worth being congratulated for. And I just honestly for being such a great example to people out there every step of the way. I'm blessed to know you, and thank you so much for coming on this program, man.
Brother, is absolutely more than a blessing to know that like I am in the fight with you, that we can share in faith, we can share in family, we can share in fatherhood in so many different areas. So God bless you, man. I'll be waiting for the next podcast that you come up with to fight. And anytime you're ready, man, I'm
All
here.
right. I love that. Thank you, brother. Folks, it is time. It's time to wake up the lions. But more than that, it's time for you to take your rightful place with your brothers and your sisters and let them hear you roar. Folks, the world is ready. You're ready. You just have to believe it.